All right, so yeah, so I'm going to create a new project from scratch. So you guys can open up a VS Code and start creating a new project. All right. So we'll start with the, we call this application, let's say like a, with the Vue CLI, obviously, Vue create chat app. All right. Just this. And I'm going to select a default one, which is the Vue 2, Babel, and ESLint. All right. So just do that one. And you should also have the same file structure as I have right here. If any questions or if you can do something, yeah, feel free to ask me or just drop it in the chat so that we can help you as well. All right. Okay, still installing. Okay, now it's done. So I'm going to CD into this chat application. All right. And then what I'm going to do is I'm just going to npm run stuff now. Oh, sorry, not npm run stuff. I'm going to open up this in the VS Code, which you should do as well. Let's just drag and drop from here. Okay. And now what I'm going to do is I'm going to npm run serve this application. Very simple, right? It's just that your starting point for how Vue CLI looks like. If I go to the lower host, now I should get this basic VueJS application. Okay, so this is our boilerplate code. Um, Now what I want to do is I want to install this view material framework right here, because this is the framework that you use whenever you want to design a let's say like a material design application or whatever, right? So there are a bunch of frameworks out there. Viewmaterial.io is just one of them. All right. So there's a Vuetify as well, and there's also King UI or whatever, right? Bunch of them, but you don't have to learn a lot of them. All right, because if you learn a framework, then it's going to be endless because there are thousands of frameworks out there. So you don't need to learn. They have their documentations inside here, docs and components. So all you have to do is whenever you want to use a framework is, you just have to go to their docs and then copy the code that you want to use, all right? And then just start learning from here, from there, right? So for example, let's say like I want to use this avatar, right? Just a simple one. So I can look inside this code, click on code, all right? Now I can just copy this part right here and then paste that in my code, right? So that will be my avatar inside my code. So yeah. Also for the new guys who just joined, what we are doing right now is like, so we just created a new Vue project from scratch, right? I call it a chat app. You guys should do the same. So just go to your terminal and then start typing, let's say like a Vue create chat app, all right? So this is what we just did so far. So yeah, just follow along because we'll be building this application after the end of this session, right? The chat application right here. So I can chat with other users, right? And then I can switch to the dark mode or whatever, right? So yeah, we'll be building this guy from scratch. And now, so to install this Vue material framework, all I have to do is I just go to the get it started, all right? And then they have their installation guide. So in this case, I want to install this Vue material and npm install Vue material, right? So I'm just going to copy this first line. And then I'm going to open a terminal inside here, paste that in here. Very simple. npm install Vue material, right? Okay, now it's done. So it's optional, but to have the best experience possible, use Roboto and Google accounts from Google CDN, because Material Design uses their Roboto font as the default one. So if we are following that Material Design guidelines, we need to use the Roboto fonts. So what I'm doing is I'm just going to copy this guy, because this is a CDN version, right? So what we can do is we can go to the public folder and then index.html, and then paste that link inside here, the Roboto font we have just included. So our application should now be using a Roboto font. All right. If I go back to my local host here, now I don't think this is a Roboto font. This is a Arial font. So if I can just go ahead to the app.view and then delete this style sheet from here, which is this guy. All right, just comment it out. Now my application is still not using the Roboto font. That's because I haven't initialized VueJS to use this material design right here. What I just did so far is I just installed the material design framework, right? But then I have included the CDN version. And to use this, to tell Vue to use this component or framework, we have to tell it like so, this one right here, the full bundle, all right? We import the Vue material from Vue material because we have it, we already installed it, all right? And after that, we just import their style sheet like default and whatever, and then we ask Vue to use the Vue material, all right? So normally this is how you would do whenever you are using a framework. So what I can just do is I'm just going to click on copy and then go back to main.js, paste that in here, all right? But we don't need to import the Vue twice. So I can just delete this guy. All right, so we import the Vue material from Vue material and a bunch of CSS in here. And we ask Vue to use this Vue material framework. Simple, right? Now if I save and then go back, refresh, look at that. My application looks kind of changed, right? It's now using the Roboto font. But you can see that, the colors and everything has been changed, the styling and everything. So it looks cleaner as well, right? So yeah, let's start coding. We'll just use this, HTML and CSS first. Just ask a question, yeah, if you don't understand something. Do follow along as well. Because at the end, we all should be having the localhost version, and then we can also chat from here, straight from the localhost, right? We don't need to go to this site to chat with other users. So, and then in here.
Hi Kaiz, I'm trying to import the Vue material, but then I'm not sure did I miss any step in between because
right.
After I installed it from the command prompt,
yep,
then it doesn't appear anywhere in my
oh yeah, you
Visual
can
Studio Code.
Yeah, can you share your screen so that we can see?
Yeah, hold on.
Oops. Okay.
I don't have this thing here.
Yeah. Oh, you don't have a local host. Can you open your VS Code? Your VS Code.
Yeah. Can you see my screen, or am I sharing the wrong screen?
Oh, you're sharing the Chrome one, not the VS Code.
Oh, okay. Yeah.
Okay.
Can you see it now?
Yeah, I can see it. That's because you haven't installed the Vue material yet, I feel like. Can you look inside your package.json? Oh, you did. Package.json.
I think npm run serve.
Yeah, you are doing npm run serve. Yeah, npm.
Should I do this again?
Yeah. npm run serve. Yeah, should be good. Now it should be up. Oh yeah. She just installed it. Vue material is fine, but never used. Go back to the main.js. You have to tell Vue to use the Vue material, which is like Vue.use, and then the brackets, and in between those brackets, you add in the Vue material. Something like this, Vue.use
Where is it?
Vue
Vue.
material. Just put in between on the line number 9.
Okay.
Yeah, Vue. It's in the chat. I sent you in the chat. Because we need to tell Vue to use the Vue material, otherwise it wouldn't work. So now if you save, it should work. Yeah, there we go. Nice. Now you can
Yeah,
see the,
it's working.
yeah,
Yeah, thanks.
yeah, no worries. All right. Okay. So if I can go back to the previous one. So obviously, right, we need a login first, something like this. If I log out, whenever I go to the user page, I have a login page, because we are going to be using this site as our the reference to build this application. So we have a card, which is like an authentication and blah, 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 and so on. So let's design this login, all right? So, and then in here, we don't need all these. So I'm just going to go back to the hello world. And then I'm going to delete this hello world completely. It's gone. And then in here, also don't need this hello world and everything. All right, instead, what we need is a card, right? We need to have a login component, first of all. So to create a login component, I will do a new file, and then I'm going to create a login.vue right here, okay? So inside here, this is how my application should look like, right? If you have a Vtor extension installed, just type in Vue to, just select the first one, so that it will give you all the script and style that looks like this. So, and in here, going back to the app.vue, I'm going to add in a few more style tags, which is like, just a basic one. I tell HTML and body to use width of 100% and height of 100%. Okay. And then in here, what else do we need? Margin to be set to 0 and parent to be set to 0, because I want to have a full width for this HTML and body, because my HTML and body should be taken up whole available width and space. All right. And after that, I'm telling app to do the same, which I can just uncomment it out, and I don't need all these. But I need this guy right here, because this will make your font very smooth. All right. And then in here, I'm telling the height to be 100% for this div of app. And after that, let's call it a minimum height. All right, min height to be 100%. And I want this to have a background of hash 2D, 2D, 2D. So it looks like a little dark mode right here, right? So yeah, if I go back, now this is my application, nothing here with the dark background right here. So which is good, right? Which is what we intended to do. I can inspect, check if there's any error. No, there isn't. All right, my app is now height of 100%. Same for my body and HTML. Okay. Now, we need to have a card right here. This is vertically and horizontally centered card. So to use this card, this is already a Vue material component, right? So we need to go back to the Vue material and then click on the card info. All right. So we can just copy and paste any of the card that we like. So what I want to use is, it should be just some white with some action in here, because we also need a login and the sign up action. All right, so in here, what I like this card, accent color card. All right, I'm going to click on the code tab right here, and then I'm going to find the accent card color right here, which is this guy, empty accent. It's telling the card to use the accent color. All right, so now if I go all the way and then copy this guy, this only part, go back to the log end of view, paste that in here. That's it. So I'm done. I didn't change anything. Yeah, I just copy and paste their code. So going back to app.view, and then I want to import this login of view to use this inside my app. So import. All right, that's it. So after that, I have to tell Vue I want to use this component, right? Because we are now using the Vue CLI, obviously. So everything is your local component. So whenever you want to use those components, you have to register them, right? So I'm going to register this calling this login component, like so. Then in here it's a login, right? Now, to use this component, login component, okay. Just a quick heads up. What I just did was I created a login to a Vue component, and then I added a card, which is the accent color card from the Vue material inside the login of Vue, and then I imported this login of Vue inside my app. So my app should now be using the login card. So now if I go ahead, there it is. It's using the login card, but styling looks a bit weird, right? Because we have an accent, the width is 100%. The card is not vertically centered. So to fix it, we just need to work with the CSS, obviously, right? We don't need to touch any of the view part. So in here, what I want this login of Vue to have is like, I want this to have a Flexbox styling, all right? So that I can vertically and horizontally center it. So what I'm going to do is I'm just going to copy this guy. Then I'm going to edit inside the wrapper div right here, because this wrapper is now a parent holder for all the thing inside here, so that we can ask this wrapper to be a Flexbox item, right? Now then, if I can just go ahead, I want to style this wrapper right here, right? This class. So I go down here, and then I say wrapper, all right? If you are using, I mean, like, do you guys know what is a Flexbox is? Have you guys used Flexbox before? Or should I use something else? Do you guys use Flexbox before? Flexbox.
I've used Flexbox before, so I think Flexbox is fine.
Yeah, okay. Because like Flexbox might be a little bit complicated for some users who don't know the Flexbox, but it's just very easy one. I think you can just learn it in 1 hour or so. Very easy one. So what you can do is this Flexbox right here, wrapper, all right? I'm saying that display to be a flex right here. So now what I just did was I asked this, I say that this wrapper inside everything children should be displayed using flex right here. Then in here, what I can just say is align items to be center, to align those items vertically, all right? And then for horizontally as well, justify content center. So now this will vertically and horizontally center all my children inside here, all right? It's just that you can even memorize this part right here because I memorized this already. So now if I save and it doesn't work, great. Let's see what went wrong in here. Oh, I see why is it not working, because the wrapper doesn't have the full height. See, it stops right here. So we tell wrapper to be a full height. So set the height to be 100%. That's it.
I think your wrap
with 3P.
Oh, yeah, sorry. Wrapper, okay, still doesn't work. Height is set to 100%. It should be the min height. This is why I don't like working with CSS. And min height doesn't work. Wrapper. All right, I just want this wrapper to be, set the width of the width to be 100%. So what I want to do is height is set to 100%. All right, and then go back here. Inside the app, must be something wrong here. Set this to height instead of minimum height. Now there we go. If you set the minimum height, then it wouldn't work for the child element whenever you want to set this height again. So you have to set the height. Instead of calling them a minimum height, just call it the height. Now it works, but there's no, the width looks okay, I guess. All right. But in here, we want to, accent color should be something like authorization. So going back, let's copy the text from here, authentication. All right, this is the header. Okay, done. Now this one, harbor, the subtitle card. All right. Now, okay, looks okay. But then in here, we need a, input and the username and password field so that we could, type in the username and password. Also, let's change the, action, both of them action to login or sign up. So the first one should be the login. All right. The second one should be sign up. Okay. Now it's login and sign up. So in here, this lowdown is some part. I don't like this accent color. It's very bright. So to remove the accent color, all I have to do is I just remove this and the accent. Now my card is now white, which looks better, right? So and in here, the content side, this thing right here, I want this to be, let's say, like a username and password field. So to use that one, I go back to the view material. And then in here, I go inside the form, the input text area, which is these guys right here, right? I want to use one of them. And which one's nice? Let's see. The username, where's the username part? Oh, right here. Password without toggle. All right, so I'm just going to copy this guy, password toggle, this line. All right, MD field. And then inside the card content, replace right here, paste. The first one will be my email, sorry, username. And it's gonna vmodel my username, right? Vmodel is a two-way data binding, if you guys can remember. The type is just a text because it's just a username, all right? And then another one, which is my password. This should be password. And it should vmodel my password. And the type of the input is now a password because it's a sensitive information, so we should have it should be hidden by default. Now we are remodeling the username and the password, but we don't have this data property, so we need to create those, right? Go down here, data, and it's a return. First, create a username. It's an empty string at first. Same goes for the password, right here, empty string. Now if I save, look what happens, yeah? Go back. Very simple. My application looks just like the one that we have here, but there are little difference here and there, but don't worry about this. We'll fix this later, all right? Looks okay, right? Username and password, username and password, username and password. Does anyone have any trouble with the code that we just did? or should we continue? If you have, just feel free to ask, yeah? Okay. All right, so, but by the way, yeah, I don't like this ripple effect. So what I'm going to do is I'm going to remove this ripple effect, which is like this. Going back here, empty with hover. Just delete this prop. Will remove that guy. If I refresh, it's not gone yet. Why is not gone? Oh, there's the MD ripple right here. Sorry, MD ripple, which is this guy. So I need to remove this component called MD ripple. And then in here, also MD ripple. Save. Now refresh. Now the ripple effect is gone. Okay. Now we can start typing in any email and any password. The password looks like this. I can show it, I can hide it, and so on. But when you log in, right, in this application, there's a chat right here. It looks like this. This is the application that we are going to build because this is the core part right here, right? So, and then in here, we have a app and some input box to send a message. And here's the little buttons in here and there. So yeah, how do we do that? Well, we are using the view material, so it's very easy to do. So we go back to the, this chat app, and then we create a new component called chats. Because right here, it's right here. Let's add in some very static, tag in here. This is chat. Okay. Now we go back to app.view. We just work with the login.view. Our login.view is completely working fine, login component. So we don't need to use this anymore, right? Because we are now working with the chats. So we'll just import the chats now. Then here we call it a chats component. There's a chats. Now change this to chats. Chats. Save. All right. So I don't know whether you guys can see it, but I can see it right here. This is a chat, which is like, yeah, static one. But there's one catch though. You can see that, there's little margin top, which is like white. And then I go down here, it's like all the way to the down right here. So it's not working so nice. I feel like this must be with the margin right here of the p tag. Now, if I remove this p tag, the white element is now gone, white background. Okay, so let's remove that guy. And I'll go back to chats. And in here, what I want to do is, I want this to have a like an app structure, right? Something like this: the header, the content, and the input box, which we can easily get from the view material because they all have this pre-built, components for us to use. So now if I go back to the app, right here, app, I can use any of this guy right here. These are all pre-built by the view material, which is this guy right here. I can use this guy, or I can use the fix plus waterfall, right? You can see that I can use a bunch of this guy. So now what I want to use is like, where is that one? Not this one. Okay. MD app. It's called MD app. Reveal. Okay. I think we can use this one. This guy right here. It looks nice, right? With all the navigation on the left-hand side, and you have your content and app on the right-hand side. So now I'm going to click on code, and then I'm going to copy this part right here, MD app, starting from the MD app, and then all the way down to the closing MD app right here. Copy. Now paste that inside here. That's it. I just copy and paste. Yeah, I didn't do anything. So now open up the chat app, refresh. Now my application looks like this, all right, which looks okay to be honest, but we don't care about this navigation bar on the left hand side. So what I want to do is I want to remove this guy, navigation part, which is inside here, empty app drawer navigation, right? So we don't need empty app drawer anymore. We just delete it, save. Now my empty app drawer is gone, all right? But my application, can my application scroll as well? So let's add in some few more for the lorem-ism. All right, save. Okay, now my application can scroll as well, but the whole UI looks quite large to my eyes. So what I want to do is I want this to have a margin, you know, let's say like a something like a width of 90% only, and then a height of 90% only, something like this, right? You know, given some margins on the top right and the bottom right here. So I click on inspect, all right? And then here, what I want to do is I'm going to hover over this app, whole application. All right, go down here, this app right here, the root element, right? And the app. So let's add in the width to be only 90%, okay? And the height to be 90% as well, which is fine, right? This looks okay to be honest, but we need to center it accordingly, all right? So to do that, we are just going to copy this class, empty app, .empty app. The class name is the empty app. You can hover over it and see the class name in here, right? Go all the way up. The first component name is your class name as well. So this is how Vue material structure it, all right? Empty app, and the style is here. Inside here, empty app. Here's the width set to the 90% only, height to be the 90% as well. Very simple. Okay, now my application looks quite good, but we need to center them accordingly, right? So to do that, what I want to do is I'm going to use the same concept as what I did in the login.view, which is using Flexbox, right? So we need to add in this wrapper element inside here, div.wrapper. Okay. Wrapper. Okay. Now down here, inside the wrapper, display to be flex, right? Because we want to center every children component of this wrapper div right here. So display will be flex, and align item center, justify content center. So this will vertically and horizontally center everything inside here. If I go ahead, yes, it did, but there are some bugs, which is like very not nice. Let's see what went on in here. I'm going to take out this empty waterfall, maybe something that this might be interfering with. Move this guy, waterfall. Oh no, it's just a hover shadow right here. Okay. Let's see, yeah. Hover over it. We don't need all these guys. It's very confusing. Delete. All right, now my application looks like this, which is quite okay to be honest. But here's a container, here's the app. All right, we set the empty app to be width of height to be 90%, 90%. Shouldn't be 90%, it should be 90 vertical height. VH. Okay, and 90 V width. Because 90% is relative to the parent, right? So whatever the parent height is, it will try to set it as a 100%. So if we say the 90 vertical height, VH means vertical height, which means like, you know, your screen height. So 90, take the 90% of your screen height and then use this in here. So we are saying equally to this right here. So same goes for the 90 V width. So if I say 100 v width, it's going to take a full width of your screen. All right. If I say 90 v width, it's going to take like a 90% only. Then if I say 100 vh, it's going to take up full width of my screen right here. The vertically, right? 90 vh should be enough. So let's change that. 90 v width, right? And 90 vh. Refresh. Okay, now it looks good, but why is this not vertically centered? Sorry, horizon. Yeah. It's horizontally centered, but not vertically centered. Let's see here. Background display is flex. This rabbi is doing what? Oh, this should be height of 100%. Sorry. There we go. See? Because it's not taking up the full height. If we want to center a element vertically and horizontally, they should be taking up full width and full height. The parent, 100%. Now if I refresh, there we go. Looks okay, right? In here, we can also have a content lorem. All right, fine. What I want to do is I'm just going to copy this few more times so that whether to see our application works or not. The scrolling and everything. Okay, looks quite fine. The header is fixed, which means like we don't have to scroll all the way top whenever we want to do something up the header. The scroll bar looks nice. Look at this scroll bar. All right. Now, undo everything that I just did. Okay. This is my MD app. MD app is just a component. All right. Whenever you see this MD dash, it means it's a component that it comes from the material, view material, right? So we know that these components are coming from the view material. So that means like they must have their own classes, which is like MD app in this case. You just saw that, right? And here, the MD app. Even though we didn't assign MD app class, because of this component class, it assigned automatically by view material, right? That's why we can style it like so. But how do you know the component class name? All you have to do is just inspect the element. This is what we what I do. So whenever I don't know the element class name or the component class name, I would just hover over it and find out the class name. But if you cannot find, or if this component doesn't have any class name, you can also assign a class on the component itself. So I can just say app component. All right. Now this MD app would also have this app component along with all the other class. So we can use this style as well. Sorry, this class to style the width and height. I'll prove this to you right here. Instead of saying MD app, I just say MD app component. Now go back. See, works the same. But now if I expand, now you can see that my div, my component also has an app dash component right here, right? At the very last, MD app and blah blah blah, all the classes, and finally there's the app component, which is this guy. Okay. Yeah, let's just keep that in so that, because like you don't have to worry about all the classes and everything whenever you are working with the components, because it's probably the easiest way. So what else we need? Yeah. Oh, I forgot. We need to have an input box right here, the styling tag right here, right? This thing. So something like this. All right. But before we do that, why not we create some messages like so, like this. My username, the first name of your username, and then your message and your date or whatever. And then we put them inside here, right? inside these things right here. Why not we do that first? So to do that, first you can see that we need an avatar. It's auto scrolling, so we need an avatar right here, and then we need a message, and then we need a text of the caption color right here. So let's go back. The first one that we need is an avatar. All right, looks like this, quite okay to be honest. Avatar and everything. And then what do we need? I don't think we need more than this one, because this one is just a styling of made by ourselves, so we don't need to worry about this. Okay. All right, there's one thing called empty content, which is like this. So if you have a primary, it will use the primary background. So we can use this component empty content to put our message inside here, inside the empty content, right? So that we can apply the dark mode onto the text message itself. Okay. So now if I go back to the components, and now if I start adding in the message component, which is message, right? The first one is your avatar, right? It starts from the left to right, remember, avatar, message. All right, second one is the message. Third one is the date, right? So you can see that all of them are, how does it look? All of them are, looks like kind of like a flexbox or vertically centered, right? We can use the flexbox here as well, but let's not use the flexbox. Let's not complicate ourselves right here. I'm going to add in the root div, call it a wrapper. Let's not call it a wrapper, just call it a div. Then in here, we first need to have a avatar, right? So the first avatar that I want to use is this little A icon, this guy right here. Copy, paste, simple, right? I'm going to say this to K, and then the accent is the red color, which is fine for now. All right, now if I save, and in here, the message, right, message.view, where do we want to display those messages? Do we want to display them in the app.view, or do we want to display them in the chat? Well, we want to display them in the chat in here, right? So we need to import this message.view inside our chats component. So message view, message. All right. And then we tell Vue to use this component, which is message component. And then the message. And in here, message component. All right, message component. Looks quite fine, to be honest. So now our application should have a message. It's a fine, but never use what is this? Well, it's not a message view, it's a message. All right, there we go. My username. And where's the message? Oh, I didn't have a message yet. I don't have a message yet. So, and in here, remember I told you guys we can use the content, right? This content. So I like the accent one, empty content accent, and I'm saying that, this is my message. Save. Looks weird though, to be honest, but we'll fix this one. This one doesn't have any width. That's why. There's no parent at all. So we need to add a parent. So in here, right? In here, what I want to have is, instead of empty accent only, I'm going to say that this class is a message class, right? So that we can style this component right here, dot message. And now I'm going to add in the parent of 20 pixel. Maybe 20 pixel is a bit much. Let's do the 10 pixel. Go back. There we go. Now it looks quite okay. But I want the border to be rounded as well, right? Borders and everything. So what I can do is I will just add in the border radius. And then in here, what I will do is border radius to be 5 pixel maybe. Okay. All right, looks fine. But the width is too much. You can see the width is a bit much right here. So we'll say the width to be fit content only, all right? Set the max width to be the fit content. So which means like, whatever the content is, just use that width. Now if I go ahead, you can see that my content is fit content right here, that my width is. So if I have a very long, let's say like a lorem in here, it should be long like that, right here. See, if it's really short, then it's going to take up the full width of the available items in here, available text, sorry, right here. See, all right, looks okay to be honest, but we need to vertically center them, right? Instead of showing them as a, as one line on each component. So we need to go ahead and add in the class now. So I'm going to call this a wrapper. All right. And then in here, dot wrapper, I'll say the display is flex, align items. No, we don't need to align them horizontally because we want them on the left-hand side, right? So only the align item should be enough. Oh, not it. Justify content, sorry. I get so confused with this guy. That's weird. Let's see what went wrong. Flex direction should be row, which means like center, let's say like, which means use those elements on the inline right here. It's similar to the inline block in the HTML. Flex item is set to row. Okay. Oh, you know what? Why is not working? Right here. Of course, we are not scoping this style right here. If you go back to the wrapper, this wrapper is not scope, right? So this element, this style also applies to my message component right here because we are using the same class name. See, this is why Vue has a scope element. Now there's an unexpected side effect. So all we need to do is just add in the scope in here. All right, it's done for the login. Now what about the chats? Well, we also need to scope this element inside the chat. And now I'm going to scope the message right here because we are telling Vue to use this style only inside this component whenever we use this scope syntax right here. All right. So now if I refresh, still the same. That's because if you go to the styles right here, right? This wrapper is now being applied inside this component as well. I can prove this because we are using the scope, right? So you can see that this is my chat component, which has a data attribute of 50623E9B, right? This is the data attribute of the chats component right here. All right, so which is, this is the data property that Vue uses to style the component. But in here, this one, we also have this data attribute, same as this one, see? The first root element is applied, all right? The children of the child root element is applied the same element as, the data attribute right here. So if I go to the, Vue CLI scope element, I can, there's the explanation on why this happens right here. child component root element right here. All right, see, with scope, the parent component style will not link into a child component right here. However, a child component's root node, which is our div right here, this one wrapper, right? Root node will be affected by both parent scope CSS and the child scope CSS. Child scope CSS first, right here, data, then the parent scope CSS. You see, right? This is by design so that the parent can style the child root element for layout purposes. All right, so you can see that why this happens, right? The root component, a child component's root node are affected by the parent scope's, data attribute and the first data attribute of the child right here. So to fix that, all we need to do is inside here, let me think how what I can do right here. Instead of calling them wrapper, we could change this to something instead of calling them wrapper, right? But let's call this a message component only. All right. And in the real world example, whenever you're working on the real world project, you shouldn't be using like same class that what I just did wrapper. I'm just calling them every class that I named wrapper, right? So there will be problem, of course, in the future if I keep doing that. But in a real world example, you shouldn't do that. What you should be doing is like, you should look at the name of your component file and then use that component name as your root class name, so that your children root node is safe from the parents and everything. All right, message component, which is this guy, display flex direction in row. Okay, now if I start editing in the justify content center, line item center, doesn't work. Why? That's weird. Oh, it's a message class. There's the data attribute from the parent. If I remove this guy, still the same. Oh, it's working. I didn't know that. Oh, flex end. This one doesn't work. Why is it? Oh, you can see that this was taking up the full width right here, the MD avatar. That's why it didn't work. See? That sends half of this width right here. Oh, so now I can just add in this MD avatar to be flex of 1 0. Sorry, 0 1. Sorry. And the width to be fit content. Still doesn't work. If I remove this guy, what happens? Refresh, nothing happens. Okay. Now this is my message component flex direction, blah, blah, blah here. This little guy is taking up a full width right here. 40 pixel. Flex 0 1. Margin is set to auto. Okay, and the width. Oh, there's a lot of margins in here. This is why. See? Let's remove that margin. Now it works because of the margin right here, the MD avatar. Why would you want to do that margin? So it's the MD avatar. And then in here, we are going to style the MD avatar with the flex of 0 1 meaning that, you know, the first one is your flex row, whether this item should grow, no, it shouldn't, and should it shrink, which is like 1, which means like shrink this item if possible. So, and then in here, we set the margin to be 0. Don't add any margin inside here. Refresh. There we go, now it works. What was the color again? MD accent, right? Yeah. Okay. MD avatar icon. It's not an avatar icon. All right. Now looks quite okay, to be honest. But let's see what happens first. All right. If there's a multiple messages, how would it look like? MD avatar icon, MD accent. Okay, okay. This is my message. All right. If you guys are not comfortable using the Flexbox that I just did, I'm just doing in here, you can use a grid if you are whatever you're familiar, right? Or you can use you know, CSS position or whatever. As long as you know you have the same layout as my right here, so it should be fine. And then in here, instead of showing one message component, the message component right here, right? I want to have a margin of 0.7 EM, so that you know there's a margin between every item in here. All right. Now, the message component. What if there are multiple message components? Let's paste that in here. All right, looks quite okay, to be honest. But I want a margin in between the avatar and the message. So let's add in some avatar right here. So inside the message, I'm just going to say margin left to be 2 pixel maybe. Yeah, there we go. Looks fine. And then now we need to have the chat box right here, the input box, right? So to do that, we need to have another input, which is in here, right? But then we also need a character count of maximum length, all right? Which is this guy. I think this guy looks fine. 200 counter. Auto grow. All right, this guy. Copy this guy. Auto grow means like, you know, the chat box will auto expand whenever you have multiple texts. See, if I start typing it, now whenever it gets to a new line, it auto expands, right? Now, again, go to the auto grow one and then copy this guy. And then let's make another component again, which is like a send message component, right? This component work is to send a message. So, and then in here, auto grow, paste that in here, and then go back, just like an auto grow. But I'll just say hi in here. And then here's the message, right? We want to remodel this message. And it's an auto grow. And it's a counter of 200. But I also want a maximum length, which is the basic HTML, you know, attribute, if you remember, right? Max length, it looks like this. And it's a 200. The counter is like, you know, the counter for how many max length is it. So something like this. This is the counter. And it's from the MD text area. All right. So we also need to have a message data property. All right. And then we will go back to the app.view. Sorry, not the app.view, the chats. Down here, empty app content, right? Inside the empty app content, this is like in between the app, right? The component for the input box should also be inside the empty app content because it's part of this empty app, isn't it? Right? It's part of this application. So it should be inside here, the send message. So if I go to the send message, import the send message, right? And then I want to register this component right here. Copy, paste, send component, send message. Let's call it a send message component so that it makes more sense. Okay, now it's a send message component, which should be just inside here as well, right? But I'll show you why there's one bug in here that the message component has been registered but not used. Okay, we also need to use the message component. All right, now you can see that this looks weird right here, isn't it? If I have a multiple message component, hold on, paste, few more times. Now, my text say hi is at the bottom, which is good to be honest, but then it's not fixed. If I want to type with new user, obviously I shouldn't have to scroll, right? I should be able to type just like this. So whenever I scroll, this doesn't scroll right here. So meaning that this input box should be fixed, but this guy should be the only part that is scrollable. Everything else should be fixed right here. So to do that, all we need to do is inside here, remember I told you guys about the empty content, right? This empty content thing is like whenever you want to add a content or something like this, you use this guy right here, empty content, right? So in here, I'm going to create an empty content, the first one. And this is my conversation session area. All right, here all the list of messages will go inside here, the first one. And I'm going to give it a class of let's say like a conversations, because here's a list of conversations right here. So this is the holder or the parent for all the messages. Makes sense, right? And then for the send message, we also need an empty content because it's a content, right? And then down here, here's a send message component. And now what I'm going to say is in here, I'm going to add in send message area or whatever, just call it a send message. Now it's done. So now if I save, go back, it's still the same because we have to add in some more CSS classes, CSS styles. Now conversations, this send message should be fixed at the bottom, but not the conversation. Conversation should be the only component or the only area that is scrollable, right? So now if I go down to the conversations, remember our app component has a height of 90 VH, right? Isn't it? Which means like it would take up a 90 vertical height. Now if I say, because conversation is the child of the empty app content right here, we could just say it is to be display of flex. All right, no, not the flex. Okay, overflow to be auto. Just one line, look what happens here. It doesn't work, right? Overflow of auto. Because what I want to happen is like conversations, right? It should only take up, let's say like a certain amount of height right here. And then down below, there should be this send input box. So after that, whenever you scroll, you don't let's say like you don't have to scroll all the way down to the, all right. Overflow is auto, set to auto, but it doesn't work. If you guys can find any solution, let me know. Yeah, I suck with CSS, to be honest. All right. Let's think what we have to do. Because we are designing something like a Facebook-like or Messenger-like structure right here, right? Messenger uses the same structure, like fix it at the bottom. And the content. Oh, I see. See the height of this guy? Conversations. See? Go all the way down right here. If I scroll up, it goes all the way down. So we need to limit this height. All right, let's limit the height to be 100% only. Oh, this empty app content is also taking up a height higher than the usual right here. See the empty app content right here, which is this guy right here, empty app content. So this should be a parent for the flex right here, because we have two child empty content, first one, second one. So they both should be a flex item, and that is using the direction of column. All right, if that makes sense. So now if I just copy this guy, then in here, draw empty app content. Now I say this to be display of flex, and justify content to be, sorry, flex direction should be column, yeah, not the flex direction. The column means like, it's whether it's each element on one line. The row is like it will display all the element on the same line. All right, so it's a column. Now if I refresh, okay, now I guess it's working fine, but we need to have certain right here. So and then down here, the conversations, we now can say that overflow is set to auto and take up only the 100% of the available width, which is my parent right here, the empty app content. Refresh. Height is set to 100%, but we also need to set the empty app content height to be 100% right here. Okay, there we go, fix. See, I don't have to write a position fix attribute right here. I just use this with the Flexbox, okay, because trust me, you don't want to do the position absolute or position fix, right? Because it has some certain side effects. I don't think it really suits the, unless you know what you are doing, use a position fix, because it won't be mobile responsive as well. So now if I scroll right here, nothing happens, right? But you can see that the say hi, here's a say hi, and here's a scroller, right? But what about the scroll bar? Before this one, we had a really nice scroll bar. It looks like this. If you go to the scroll bar in the element UI, it looks like this, right? Scroll bar shows the track on how much content has been reviewed, or blah blah blah. So if you want to enable a scroll bar style, just add a empty scroll bar class to the scrollable component that you want. So for example, the input box shouldn't be scrollable, obviously, right? But the content is scrollable. So you can use this class inside the empty content, which is this guy right here. In the content class, empty scroll bar, meaning that use the scroll bar, the new scroll bar from here. Now it looks okay, which is good, right? But yeah, I mean, like, looks quite okay already. We need to fix some more bugs here and there. Also, we need a, the send button beside the send input box right here. Just like this, see? So go back to the send message component. Here's the empty text area, right? And in here, I'm going to use, instead of using like Flexbox, or whatever, right? This view material has very neat feature called a layout. Go to the layout. All right, here's the layout. And then in here, you can align the certain elements, right? So if you want to vertically center, horizontal center, right, space between, space around, right? Sizes, responsiveness, and everything in here. We can use this class because we don't have to write a bunch of CSS, right? I don't think we should be using that since we are using the framework already, which we should be taking advantage of, right? It's like this, MD layout, the first one, and the layout item. It's still using the Flexbox, so it will automatically align all the item accordingly, all right? So in here, MD layout, right? The first one, the first item is my text box right here, the input box. All right. What about the second item? And we don't need the third item because we don't have it. The second item is my button. And how do we use the button inside the view material? You go to the button, everything is there, all right, just for you. So you can see that, we are going to use this send button right here, something like this, with the icon instead of saying like text or whatever, right? The thumbs up icon, I like this one. Here, copy, paste. Now, MD button, MD accent. Not the MD accent. I don't like the MD accent. It should be MD primary. And now it's thumbs up, right? But I don't like a thumbs up. This is the icon name, by the way, yeah? So if you want to explore a bunch of icons available for this view material, you go to the icon. Then in here, it's using the material icons, obviously, because this is the material design framework. So you click on this material icons link. And this is all the icons that view material is using. So if you want to use this icon, all you have to do is filter by name, or let's say like you want to use a dark mode or whatever, right? You can search for dark, and then here's the icon name right here, dark_mode. So you copy this guy, and then if you can see, you can just copy this name right here. And that's it. This is how you include the name of the icon right here. So in this case, what I want to do is I want to have a send, right? Send button, the little mail icon. Yeah, this looks nice. Send. The name of the icon is a send. So all I have to do is just replace MD icon with the send. That's it. So now if I go back to my view material, looks okay to be honest. But you know why this happens? Because if you go to the layout right here, like I said, right, whenever you have 3 columns, it will automatically align, Flexbox will automatically align the items, based on how many items you have. So in this case, we have a 3 item. So it shows like this. But in our application, we only have 2 icons, two items, all right? The first one is our field. The second one is our button. But Flexbox doesn't know that button is smaller than the input, right? Because Flexbox is not human. So it's dumb, to be honest. And now we have the MD layout item, which is the first one. Sorry, the sign item icon. The first one is our input, right? So you can see that if you hover over it, they are both using the same width. because Flexbox doesn't know that which one is smaller than which one, right? So it doesn't know that this needs to be smaller than this guy right here. So in the end, this input box should take up a 90% of the available width, but this one should only take up like 10% only, right? So to do that, in here, this one is the empty button, right? I will say that this one is a send button, right? Send button, the class name of the button. Now, down here, scope it, remember to scope it, right? Send button. I will say the flex grow, whether this item should grow 0, don't grow it, all right? Flex basics, sorry, flex shrink, whether this item should be shrink. Yes, it should be 1. Now if I refresh, still doesn't work, which is not good. But the item is now shrink, but the MDL layout item is not shrinking the item right here. See, the flex is 1 and 1, right? If I change this guy to 0, 1, sorry, 1, 0, no, it still cannot. I think it's because I should also ask, you know, this to take up a full width right here, the input box, right? Otherwise it wouldn't work. So how do we do that? We go back to the code. Now here's a send button, right? Oh, I put it on the wrong side right here. Should be on the MDL layout item. This thing right here, the root one. There we go. All right, but here's, it's not vertically centered. I don't know if you guys can see it or not, but I can see it. This thing should be somewhere in here. All right, to do that, we go back to the MDL layout. Remember, I show you guys that you can horizontally or vertically center the element, right? So center, right. All right, here's a vertically centering the item. All right, we want to vertically center this guy. So if you go all the way down, here's an MDL alignment right here. So you add this class on the MDL layout class beside the MDL layout component right here, beside the MDL layout, right? Beside this class. And say Y is your Y axis and X is your X axis, obviously. So Y is your horizontal and X is your, sorry, Y is your vertical. X is your horizontal, right? So MD alignment. And then in here, what I'm saying is MD alignment. All right, I want to vertically center. And do I want to center them, you know, the content, you know, horizontally or left or right? I can just say that if I want to center the horizontal, you know, horizontally left, I say left, or horizontally right, or center. The first one is your Y axis, the second one is your X, right? So we don't care about the X axis for now. We only want the Y axis. So we say MD alignment, center, save, here, right here. You can see that go down. MD alignment Y and X, right? There we go. Now it's center right here. All right. Looks quite okay. Yeah. Now, if I start typing in, and then nothing happens, right? Because right now we haven't integrated a backend. So what we just did was we just built a front-end application correctly, right? We have a login, we have a send message, we have a message. I can prove this right here. We have a login right here, right? The login component, obviously. And we are now using the chats component because we are working on the chats component, right? But we are not using any of the backend API yet. So in order to fully display or fully develop this application into a working, you know, chat application, we need to integrate a backend API to our code, right? So You guys won't know backend for now, but I'm sure, of course, some of you may know it. But what is a backend? Yeah, a backend is what you will learn in a few weeks. But I just want to quickly touch on this guide because you guys won't be lost. So that you guys have used the fetch API before, right? The fetch API from JavaScript. So whenever you want to fetch some data from the, for example, let's say like if I can go to the JSON placeholder, I say fetch, right, and here fetch the URL of the link, it's just this guy, is a promise, right? So I say fetch dot then, wait for it to finish D. After when I got the data, I want to console.log this data, right? Done. And it's still not working. Pressure UFA, blah blah, whatever. You get the idea and how you do it, right? So we have a backend for our chat API, obviously, because those messages are stored inside the database, right? Database. So the database looks something like a MongoDB or Postgres or SQL or whatever, if you guys have used any, right? But right now, what does the database look like? All right, I have deployed my API on Heroku. Heroku is like a the deployment company for all the applications that you build. So here's the Heroku, and here's the backend, right? The backend one that we have here. And how do you explore this backend? Okay, I'll show you a code, but you guys don't need to know a lot of it. I just want to show you an example on how we can integrate the API so that we have a walk-in material chat application. All right. So go back to the documents. Go to the, where was it? Where did I put it? Oh, it's not in here. Hold on, yeah. Oh, in here. Okay, there we go. Here's our backend. It's using the Express server, all right? But here's all the routes that we have available, or all the available routes, right? So for example, if you go to the JSON placeholder, right? And then you go to the post, you get all the posts, right? If you go to the to-dos, you get all the to-dos. Or if you go to the authors, you get all the authors, right? Similar to, but in here, in our message, in our backend API, whenever we go to the, where is it? /route/API messages, all right? We get all the messages, all right? API messages. I can show you guys if I have an Insomnia. This is just Insomnia is just a test, client for your backend. All right, it's a GET request, remember? So what is my API endpoint? Well, the API endpoint for my site is right here. Copy. The first route is available to us, which is like an API. All right, /messages. Here, /messages. Now, if I get all the messages in here, it's sending a request to the server. So it should take a while, right? Because like you're not using something like a custom server just for this one. We are relying on the free version, so you have to wait for a while. Hopefully this works. So say that then your job must be provided, meaning that I have to be logged in order for me to access those messages. isn't it? But what is the JWT or JWT, all right, JSON Web Token? It's like, how do I explain this? So when you want to attend to a certain concert, right, you need ticket, obviously, isn't it? So if you have a ticket, you can go to that concert. If you don't have it, then you will be kicked out, all right? So you can't go there, obviously. So JSON Web Token is similar to how a ticket, but for the web development. So for example, if you want to get all the, certain, let's say like messages in this case, from this API, you need to be logged in, meaning that you need to have a token. That token is like your ticket to get all these messages. So if you have this token, you can get all these messages. So in the end, you have to be logged in, right? But how do we get that ticket? Okay. So to get that ticket, I am going to log in into this API. After I log in, I should get my token back. So how do I log in to this API? From Insomnia, yeah? I go to here /API/users, then I go to the users, which is the login right here, right? You don't need to know all of this. I'm just showing you the example so that we know how to fetch the data at least, right? /login. Now, there are 4 types of requests. The first one is a get, right? Get will get all the data. The second one is the post. Post will post the new data, right? And the third one is the update. Sorry if I can remember, it's a patch or update. Yeah, update. All right. And the fourth one is a delete. Get, post, patch, update, patch, delete. Or not patch, it's the put, sorry. So, get will get the data from the server, right? It's the simple. Post will post the data to the server, all right? And then the third one is put will update the existing data on the server, all right? Something like this. Delete will delete the something from the server, right? Data from the server. So you can see that there's a CRUD operation going on. You can create, you can read, you can update, you can delete, right? It's called CRUD. So CRUD is short form of create, update, and delete, right here. Create, read, update, and delete. So in this case, whenever I go to the JSON placeholder post, I'm making a get request because I want to get I got all this data, right? So I made a successful get request. So similar to how I would get all the messages, API messages, right here, the method of the post right here, get, right? I want to get all the messages, but it says the JSON token must be provided, meaning that I don't have a ticket. So to do that, I go to the API/users and then log in. So now I have to log in. So you can guess it, which type of request we have to send is, we need to send a post request because I'm now sending my response, myself to the server saying that, hey, add me to your database because I want to log in now, right? So it's a post request. And then you have to give in a JSON of username and the password. So in this case, the username is real and 1234556, right? Now if I send the request, it's saying it's waiting for a response, nothing happens because this user is not signed up on the server, right? This user is not signed up. So we need to sign this guy up. How do you sign up? In the route user, you can see that this is it's a post request to the server create. So now API/users/create will register the user. All right. So now if I say real 1234556, send the request, there's my token right here. This is the key to access the data on the server. All right. And this token is very important and it's also very secure. So it's called Json Web Token, right? So now I'm just going to copy this guy and go back to my headers. And inside my header, I'm going to say auth dash token. This is my authentication token, or it's like an auth ticket, right? Paste that in here. Now I won't be sending this request at first. I'm just going to, uncheck it right here. Now I want to get all the messages, right? I have logged in. I have created my password and username / messages. It's a get request, right? Get the root. Job must be provided, meaning that you don't have a ticket. Give me a ticket, right? Otherwise, I won't log you in. That's it. So it's saying like this. So now if I go back to the header, now I enable this guy. See what happens, yeah? I don't need this guy anymore. Send. There we go. 200, okay. Meaning that, I get all the messages because I'm logged in, right? See? Right here, everything. By the way, yeah, the password that I sent is not stored as a literal string on the server. So it's decrypted. So meaning that, your password are not stored as a literal string. So no one knows, no one can guess what's your password because it's decrypted. Meaning that, if I can just go to the MongoDB, password is like decrypted. If you know what is a decrypt, just Google it. It's like a very neat way of storing the sensitive information on the server, right? Yeah, moving on. So now I can get all the messages, or I can also create a messages if I want, right? So how do you create a message? Well, you go to the routes message, and then in here, getting all the messages. This is a get request, creating a messages or sending a messages, right? Post is a post request, and then /create. All right. API /message /create is an endpoint to create a message. So it's a post request. And which data do I have to pass? Well, obviously I have to pass in my username to say that who am I, all right? And then I have to give it a text of what message do I want to send. So now this guy real, all right, my username is real, yeah? I haven't sent any message yet. You can check it inside the view material chat application, which you should be able to see in a few seconds. So now I'm going to say my username is real, right? My username is real. And now I have a text, say hi. So now when I send this request, see what happens, yeah? Just wait for a few seconds. It's a post request. I said hi. And I did I sent a message from the Insomnia, right? I didn't send it through the, this material chat app right here. But what is going on inside here? Why is it not working? Let's log out. All right. Okay, it's loading. Now I should be able to see the say hi from the read. See, here's the message that he sends. So you can get the basic idea on how we fetch the data and blah 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 and everything, right? So yeah, let's integrate this fetch methods and post methods into our application chat app so that we have a fully functional, chat application. So I want to start off. Remember, we also need a token like a ticket, Json Web Token, so that you can get all the messages and everything. So in other words, you need to be logged in, and you need to have a token that will check whether you have logged in or not. So in here, I want to start off with very simple one. Okay, I want to have a login method. It's just a login one. Yeah, let's see, where do we start now? We have a message, and do we have anything left? I think that should be enough. All right, so now we don't need this guy. I'm just going to close this guy. And what is our API endpoint? Remember, this is our API endpoint, right? So we need this guy. So I'm going to store this guy inside somewhere else. I'm going to say config.json. And then in here, inside the JavaScript literal object, I want to call this an API. And here's our API, right? We don't need the slash save. Now API, you don't need the slash, yeah, by the way. Just remove the slash if you have it, just below that. Because we are going to be concatenating with multiple slash API, right? So, right? But this URL would never change. This is the domain name for the API, or rather. So now, this is our API. Now, if I go to the FW, and I don't need the login, I need a login component, right? Because we want to start off very simple with the login first, login component. All right, so here's our login component. But inside here, we need to send a request whenever user clicks on the login and whenever user clicks on the sign up. Okay, so if they click on sign up, we will send a request to the /create. Remember in here how we did it, create, right? To create a new user or to register a new user. I should have called it a register, but for some reason I call it create. So yeah. And then in here, remember in the JavaScript, sorry, not the JavaScript, in VueJS, we have a v-on, right? V-on, click. Whenever user clicks on it, we call a login. That's it. And whenever user clicks on this guy, we call a register, right? So these are methods, obviously. So we need to make them methods. And then in here, login. All right. And then here we have a register. So here's our login and here's our register, right? In here, we are going to be sending a request to the server. So which library do we use to send a request to the server? Can anyone tell me what it is? Like, I mean, like, I feel you guys have learned about the, the request and, the server and responses, right? So what is the library that you use in JavaScript, yeah? In just JavaScript that you use to send a request or post a new data to the server? Anyone? All right, I think it's a fetch API, right? So if you guys have used a fetch API before, it's a part of JavaScript library, right? So you don't have to, like, you can just literally fetch the data straight from the JavaScript code. It's very simple. It's like a fetch, and then you give it a URL, right? Blah, blah, blah. And then you will get a response after that. So yeah, but it's an asynchronous code, meaning like you have to wait for it because it's fetching the data from the server. So same goes for here because we are sending a request to the external API, right? So we need to wait for a few seconds. So to do that, we can use the .then and right? then after that, do something with it. So in the login, I want to import this API first, right? So that I send a request correctly. Import API from the config.js so that I get the config.json. Right here. And then in here, let URL, the URL that we want to send is the API plus this API looks like this, obviously, so we are just taking the string and then add in the route name is a /API users/login, meaning that we want to log in, right? But for register, we have a create, meaning that we want to register. Oops. And after that, what we need to do now is we need to call a authenticate. There's the authenticate. So this is a method that we have, and it takes in the URL parameter, right? So based on, because the URL are not different, so I don't want to write a a double code for the same data right here. So I just made an authenticate right here. So this method is the method that is going to send to the server. So I'm going to say fetch, all right, URL, fetch to the URL, and then we have to give a bunch of options right here. Both of them are post requests. Remember, post requests, meaning that they are adding something to the server. Meaning whenever we want to log in, we are logging in. Obviously, we are sending the data because we have a username and password sent, right? And then we have to give a bunch of options like so. The first option is, here's your option. Method, what kind of method is this? Is this a get method or is this a post method? So in this case, it's a post method, right? Post. Now, we need to give a headers as well. What kind of data that you want to send? Well, in this case, we are sending a content type of application JSON, right? This is like a JSON code, because we have a JavaScript objects, right? Username and password. So the content type is application JSON. So yeah, just remember that whenever we want to fetch or post a new data, you always add in this content type application JSON. So it's just becoming redundant, I feel like. And then in here, the body, the data that you want to pass. In this case, we want to pass in the username and the password, right? Because we want to log in. So what I will do is I will set the let body be equal to empty object right here. And then the first one is my username because it takes in the username. Remember this dot username. You can see that in here, the username and the text. Oh, sorry, not the text. And the password. This was for sending a message. Sorry. Password is the this dot password. Okay, looks fine to be honest. JSON.stringify body. Because we need to stringify this. Fetch API doesn't work if you don't stringify this. But Axios works, all right? So you guys will learn about Axios in when we go to the backend. But right now we'll just use the fetch API first, all right? The first one we are telling fetch, go to this URL, whatever this URL is, and then post a request to the server with this body of blah 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 right here, username and password. So then after that, then after you have sent the request, we have a data, right? We got a data back. And I feel like I told you guys about the, I remember that I told you guys about the data.json will convert the data back to the JSON format, right? But it's also a promise. So dot then again, you need to wait for it. And after that, we have another data called, let's call it a data, let's just call it D. And now I'm going to console.log this data. All right, what I'm doing is very simple. First, I'm fetching the data, or I'm posting the data rather from the server to the server. And then after that, I got a response, right? Then I need to convert this guy back to the JSON, which is also a promise. So I need to wait for it first. Then again, after that, then I'm just console.logging it. Because Fetch API doesn't convert your data, response data, to the JSON manually. So automatically, sorry, then you have to do it manually, right? So now if I save, whenever user clicks on login, right, I'm going to call this authenticate with this URL. And same goes for the register, right? This is the authenticate. Now, will this work? Let's test it out. Now, if I refresh, I'm inside the login. What? App.view. It's login component, right? App.view login. Oh, login. All right. Now if I go to the console, real 1 2 3 4 5 6 login. There we go. It logs me in. I got a token right here. See? Now, where do you store that token? That's the question. Because this is our key. So this is like our ticket. So you need to have this ticket whenever, like when you're going to a concert, right? You have to have a ticket, within near you, like 24/7. Otherwise, if you are lost with the ticket, or it's like on the bus card, right? So you need a ticket. If you don't have a ticket, then you cannot go travel. So similar to that. So now we have a token, and that token, we can store that inside our local storage, or we could just store them inside our storage, session storage, right? So both of them won't reset whenever you have you refresh a page or whatever, because local storage is persistent in even if you refresh the page. So let's store that inside the local storage, right? Why not? So after user logs in, .then d, right, in here, let's clean this up. I assume that you guys already know the async await, right? I'm not sure, but it's just a syntax, sugar syntax rather, to, like when you see that, .then, you can see the nesting or the code that looks a bit ugly already. So to fix that, JavaScript has created a very nice feature called async. You add in the async keyword in front of your method or the function itself. Now we say let data await. Now we don't need this guy anymore. We say that wait for this guy to finish, right? Then execute the statement below. So now after the data has been fetched, we say data.json, convert this guy back to the JSON. And now we can also use the await syntax in here. Let data.json, I'm going to say data.json is await data.json. So now we got this data back, right? It's similar to .then, but it just makes your code a little bit cleaner as well as easier to read. So now after that, what I want to do is, how does the structure look like? It's a token, there's a username. So I want to store both of them inside my local storage. So I'm going to say local storage .set item. The first one is the token, data JSON token. All right. The second one is my username, which is like my username. By the way, the username is n is like the capital one. So yeah, just needs to be careful with that. Now if I save, whenever I log in, right, let's log in, real, 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6. Now look inside my local storage. Yeah? After I log in, great, there's no error, meaning that our login was successful. If I go to the local storage, oh, shocks. Okay, let's clear all this one out. This is from my other projects. So
Kaiz, is the local storage cache or?
yeah, it's cache. Basically,
Okay.
like it's like your, what is it? The little application storage for your apps to use. But you never store something like a password or the, something like very sensitive information, bank information, never inside the local storage. Store them inside your database and encrypt them, because local storage is like hackers can, literally manipulate this local storage. So for token, it's safe to store that token because token is already encrypted, right? But not the bank information. If it's encrypted, then it's safe. But I feel like never store sensitive information inside the local storage, because there's thing called like, what is it, if I can remember this correctly, some people can manipulate this XSR attack or SHR attack. They do this something like even like Facebook accounts are not secure nowadays, but yeah. So now if I log in, hit login, yeah, there it is. See, it set my token successfully. And then in here, username is set to real, which is my username, obviously, right? Now we have just logged in, meaning that we got the token. Now we can just go ahead to the chat and then we can get all the data from here. But before we do that, I just want to show you guys, what if I sign up? Will it work for the sign up as well? Now if I clear this guy out and then and now in here, I'm going to say, all right, Batman. And then in here, all right. Now if I click on sign up, see what happens. There we go. The sign up and the login flow works. But what happens if I sign up again to the user that already exists? Sign up again. There's an error, which is expected, right? Because you shouldn't be able to sign up twice. So if it does, then our whole application could break because username has to be unique. So now it's fine, obviously, but let's log in with this Batman and Superman. Go back. Yeah, Batman token right here. Okay, looks fine, but now we have set the local storage token to be blah, blah, blah right here. But you can see that whenever I refresh this page, yeah, let's see if I refresh this page, my token is still there and my username is still there as well, meaning that, I can just log in easily. So whenever I refresh a page, I have a token already, meaning that I have a ticket to fetch all the data, right? So we don't need to show this login component again, if that makes sense, because we already got the token. We can just log in, we can just log them in automatically, and then we can show all the messages inside the chat, right? So in the app.view, whenever our application logs in, remember this is like our root component, so everything starts from here, right? I have a data property called is logged in. It's set to false at first, right? Because user is not logged in at first. Now, and I have a method, all right, a method that checks whether a user has logged in or not. So for example, check is logged in. A user has a, is the user logged in? So in here, if I'm going to get the token from the local storage first, local storage, because our local, if there's a local storage available token right here inside the local storage, get item by the token name, which is a token, right? The name of the item, the key is a token, which will get the value of the item in here, this guy, right? The value. Now, if there's a token, if token, meaning that if there's a token, it's not null, right? This dot is logged in is set to true. Else, this dot is logged in will be set to false. Now, how do we call this method? If you guys can remember the life cycle when we talk about Vue, remember we have created whenever the component has been created. So whenever our application has been mounted, this app.vue, meaning that when our application has been refreshed, our site has been refreshed, mounted, we run this dot is logged in. Check whether a user has logged in. Very simple. Now, if it's login, right? If it's login, then this will turn true. I can prove this if I refresh. Now, go to the view. Is login is set to true because I have a token exists in my local storage, right? But what if I clear this username, go back to view? Now, is login is false, meaning that I haven't logged in, right? So, but there's a problem, yeah? So if I log in right now, real, there's no, okay, it's okay, 1, 2, what was my password again? Okay, let's log in with Batman. Login. Okay, it's logged in because there's a token and the username. So now if I refresh and then go back to my view, click inside app, is login is set to true. So based on this data property, we can manipulate this info right here. If it's not login, show this login component. Else, show the chats. Very simple, right? Import chats from components right here, chats.vue, right? So now if is logged in is false, show this guy. Now I'm going to copy this guy and then I'm just going to say chats component. Else, meaning that if the login is true, then show the chats component. Copy this guy, chats component, save. Chats is defined but never used. What? Oh, yeah. There we go. I got a chat, right? Because I'm logged in. Now, refresh. I got a tutorial right here, this guy, authentication, right? Now, if I can log in, refresh again. Oops. Sorry. All right, so now if you look inside here, token and the username is being set. So now if I refresh, there's my application. Make sense? So we just logged in successfully, right? There's not a problem or like, but now inside the chat, we need to handle something in here. Whenever this application has been mounted, what do? Well, we fetch all the messages because this application won't be mounted if the user is not logged in, is it? Right? You can see it inside the app. If the user is not logged in, then this application won't be rendered at all because I'm using VIF. Remember, VIF doesn't render a component, right? But vshow does. So we are not using vshow, but we are using the VIF, meaning only render this component if the statement is true or false. So in this case, is login is true, then render this component, otherwise render the login, right? So meaning that when this component has been rendered or mounted, meaning that we are 100% sure that a user has been logged in, right? Has been logged in. So on mounted, all we need to do is this dot fetch messages. We call this messages method, fetch message method, to fetch all the messages from the server. That's it. Just like how we would do inside the post method in here, the insomnia. All right. So go back to the methods, and then in here, I'm going to create a fetch message. Very simple one. Also, we need to import the API because we want to fetch the data from the API, right? From config.json. All right. Here's this play. All right. Okay, so, but there's one catch, yeah? Remember inside here, if I can just go to the history, this here, yeah, the headers. You can see the header has a content type of application JSON, right? And then the auth token is sent as well. But inside the login.view, we are not sending the auth token. Why? Can someone tell me why I'm not sending this auth token in here, but the request was successful? I mean, like, it's very simple, right? Why though? Because we are not logged in. How do we get the ticket if we are logged in, right? If we are not logged in. So in order to get a ticket or token, we need to log in first. So if you require the, if you ask a token inside this login endpoint, then your user cannot log in, obviously, right? Because you are protecting the open route or whatever. So there's no way users can log in, right? So that's why. But for the messages, we need to send the token that we have inside the local storage right here, right? Because you can only get chats because those chat routes are protected, right? So now it's the async, right? Asynchronous. First, I want to write a clean .then methods, right? .then promise code, sorry, asynchronous code. Let data be await. Fetch the URL and then the object. The first object is this a method? What is the method? Sorry, what is the type of this request? The method is a GET request. By the way, yeah, fetch API default method is a GET request. So in this case, fetch API, if you don't pass in the method, right, it will still use the GET request. But to be specific, I just like to include it so that I know what I'm doing, obviously, right? Because there could be some like minor bugs here and there. So if we include all of those info at the start, then we know what we are doing, or we are sure what we are doing, right? So in here, headers. Now here's the important part, right? We first need to set the content type to be application JSON because we are sending a application JSON. And we want to get all the messages. So it's a GET request, obviously, but we also need to pass in the token to present this ticket that's saying that, we are allowed to fetch this data. All right. So, and then here, what I would say is auth token, right? The name of the key name is called auth token. You can see it inside here. Now, where do we get that token from? Well, we store that inside our local storage, right? So just say that local storage.get item and the name of the token, the key name, which is our token. Makes sense, right? Now, what else do we need? We have a URL and we are passing in some info right here. All right, looks fine, to be honest. Now we got the data. So now after we got the data, we will say that let data JSON. We want to convert this data back to the JSON, right? All right. Okay. Now, after that, I'm just going to console.log the data. Okay, because why not? You should ever do the console.log whenever you're working. API is defined but never used. URL is not defined. What the heck? Oh, yeah. Where's the URL? I didn't define any URL. API plus, what is the route that we want to get, right? Well, we have the API slash the API, right? And then the messages only, and then the slash, because as the root route, right? Whenever we go to, you can see that what is the API right here. If you go to the config, this is our API. So it's similar to we are concatenating like this, all right? Plus blah, blah, blah. So at the end, our application, our code should look like this, obviously. And now save API slash messages. So this will get all the messages from the server. Now if I refresh, there we go. I have 18 messages. How's that? So now what we need to do is we need to store this information in our data property. And then we are going to loop through this message component to display all the messages in here. Very simple, right? So now I go to the data, return, and here's my messages, all right? And there's an empty array at first because it's my array. So now after that, when we got the data JSON, we are going to update this system messages to be data slash JSON, meaning that update our array. Now our array should be an 18 length right here. It looks like this, should look something like this. But how do we display this info, right? So going back to my message component, instead of saying that message component blah, 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 why not we use a for loop in here, on here, right? If you guys can remember a for loop, v4, right? Message and messages. Loop through the messages. We bind the key because we need a key so the Vue can, figure out which elements or which item belongs to which component so that they can update it whenever the reactivity system changes. Key. The key will be, what I will do is I'm just going to pass in the index as the key, right? Because index is always unique, starts from 0 and all right. So if there's an 18 message, this should be created 18 times. Save. There it is. But the data are static because if you go to the message component, we are using this as my message, but what if we receive a prop in here so that we can display the dynamic data, right? So what I will do is I want the username, all right, because I saw that I can display the username info in here, and I want the message. We will receive a message property, message object, the whole object, the one and like so, right? The text is hey, the username is blah, 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 and so on. Now props. The first prop that I want to receive is the username and the message, but instead of doing that, why not just receive a whole message object? Very simple one. So yeah, let's do that. Message. Type of the prop is an object in this case. Is it required? Of course, if you want to use this one, you have to pass in this one, required. Because this one is for this one, right? And now, in here, empty avatar. message dot text. Text meaning this guy, right? Right here, text. And the avatar is the first name of your username, which is like if my username is real Kaiz, it should be R. All right. So how do you get the first name of your username? Well, you use a very basic JavaScript code, right? If you can remember, this the username, and then the first character. Convert this first character to uppercase. So meaning that this should be converted to a uppercase letter. Save. All right. Now look what happens here. Great, there's an error because there's a message component. See, but we are not passing any message, if that makes sense, right here, because this is required set to true. We are not giving any message in here. So to fix that, we say the vbind and then the message, because this is the props name. So you don't have to call it just a message. You can call it whatever you like. All right. So and then in here message. So now if I save, this should be up, and this one is message. Don't confuse this message with this variable right here. This is just a variable, and this is just a props name, right? You can call this guy, sorry, this one, the variable name, whatever you like. So it doesn't have to be a message. It can be anything. Let's call it an M, all right, just to make sense. So I'll call it M. All right, now, there we go. It worked. Here. How cool. But what about sending a message? All right. What about sending a message? I want to send a message. Right now it doesn't work. Well, before we do this one, do you guys have any question with the fetch API that I just did? Because like fetch API is like a key to the backend API when you want to learn. If don't understand something, just feel free to ask. Like fetch API should be very simple as well. Okay. If anyone has any problem with the code or itself, right? Just yeah. Also in here, this is the authenticate. We are authenticating the users and so on. So to send a message, send a message, say hi, blah blah blah. All right, I'm gonna give you guys a 5-minute break so that before we start implementing the send message, I feel like yeah, just take a break now. I also just ask a question if you guys have any inside this break, so I'll be available. Yeah. You don't stop, like when you were coding, you should take a break as well. If not, then you are bullying yourself. So in the API and everything. Yeah, I can ask a question, yeah, if anything. Yeah. So
Kaiz?
yeah.
Yeah. I was just wondering, will you be sharing the codes for this later?
Yeah, of course. Yeah,
Okay, all right.
we have the code for that. But I mean like the final code or the deployment code right here that I written won't be similar to what we are written, but the logic is still the same, but there's some minor difference here and there.
Okay, yeah, because I think I'll just need to reference it again to
Yeah, sure.
fully understand what's going on. Yeah.
Yeah,
Thanks. Sir.
no worries. Okay, so yeah, to send the message, yeah, we need to handle the say hi or input box, and whenever user clicks on this little button, we send a message, right? So if I go to the send message, here's a message that I'm remodeling. Okay, so when user clicks on this button, the ND button, all right, we have a V on, right? V on, click. Whenever user clicks on this guy, we want to call a send message. So let's make a function called send message like this. And then in here, what I will do is I'm going to say let yeah, here's a bit catchy thing. Okay, import API from the config.json. So how do we send a message? Well, there's an endpoint for the sending a message. If you go inside the Insomnia, was like message API message create, right? Create. So, and then in here, okay. All right. So let's the fetch is a fetch API, right? Fetch API, and now the URL is a let URL be API plus concatenate with a slash API messages create. By the way, yeah, if you are wondering what is API is, it's just a string from the config.json because we are reusing it everywhere, right? So I don't want to write it again and again whenever I want to use it. So I just put it inside the config.json. And then I'm concatenating with this API plus the blah, 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 right? API string, messages, and create, something like that. Okay.
I've got a question. Isn't it
Sure.
better to just add like create URL, login URL in the config.json rather than using it in a local scope like that?
Yeah, sure, you can do that. But there's one problem though, if that's the case, right? So we are populating this config.json. You can do that as well. But in here, what I'm doing is, let's say like this is just an API, all right? And then here's an login API, right? You want this to be something like that. But since this is like a JavaScript object, right? You would have to rewrite it again and again. Still, it's also a good way of doing it. But messages, or let's say like get the messages. So this is one way to do it. All right, this can still do that. But if we have a multiple API, yeah, you should do that as well. This is how I would encourage, right? But in here, since this is like a small application, I don't want to over confuse you guys. So I also prefer this, concatenating string and everything because like it's like a very neat way to. But if your application is quite large, you have a bunch of routes, then you should use the this way right here that you mentioned. But if it's really small, if it's like a very small API route, then just do that one.
Okay, okay. Thank you.
Yeah, no worries. All right, so there's the URL, and here's the object that I have, fetch URL, blah blah blah. And now this is like an async, right? I almost forgot the async. because it needs to be processed, await. And what is the message that we want to send? Well, we want to, method is a post method because we are creating a new data, and the headers is a content type of application JSON, meaning this is like an application. And after that, we also need to have a token because like we are creating a new message, so we need a token. Get a local storage, get item, the token, right? And we also need to pass in the body of which message we are sending. So in this case, this is like the message text that we are sending, right? So in here, what I have is let body be the array, sorry, not the array object, and the username, right? The username that we want to, that we are associated with. So in this case, our username was available inside our local storage, get item, sorry, user name. It was like a username without the capital N, username, and now the message part, which is in here, right? So the message was called as a text, if you remember in here how it should be, like this is right, there's a text. So in this case, our username is real Kaiz, and the username, the text is blah blah blah, whatever, right? So the text will be this, the message. That's it. So we want to remember, you know, fetch API only takes in the stringified JavaScript object. It doesn't take in the dynamic JavaScript object like literal objects, right? So you need to stringify it if you want to send the data in a body. JSON.stringify, very simple, body. This body doesn't, you know, this body only points to this object, yeah, not this object, but this is like a property, and this is the value. So yeah. And now await blah 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 fetch URL. So now if I save, here's a send message, yeah. But yeah, let's see what happens. So now if I refresh, hi from localhost sent. All right, there's no error, but I'm going to refresh. Hi from localhost, there's the message that I sent. It's already in the database, but this shouldn't happen, obviously, right? Whenever there's like a data, a user, you know, shouldn't have to reload the page, obviously, because like it's a chat application. So we need to fix that. So in here, right, after we send the data information, we need to reset this message to be a empty string right here, the empty, this message empty. So the message, you know, it looks like a traditional chat application, so that this message is set to empty string. All right, so now let's test it again. All right, the message has been sent. That's why our, you know, the send hi this input box has been reset. Go down. There's that. All right. So, but there's a problem. Okay. Whenever, you know, a new message has come, our application is not updating manually or automatically rather. We have to refresh the page manually. How do we fix that? Last week, I told you guys about the set interval, remember? If you guys have built a Pomodoro clock, then you should know that. But the set interval is like you know, executing the function intervally. So if you say execute this code every 30 seconds or every 2 seconds or every 1 second, it's going to run forever unless you tell it to stop. All right. So we could use the same functionality in here. All right. If you go back to that message chats, here's a flash message. What do you think we can do in here? Well, set interval. Every 5 seconds, fetch the new message. That's it. Right? Every 5 seconds. It's called polling, right? We are polling to the server every 5 seconds, fetching whether there's a new data or not. Now, if I go back, you can see that if someone types the message from here, you guys can go ahead and type let's see how it updated it. You guys can go ahead and type any message in here inside the VueJS chat app. Then I should be also getting the same message at the same time as you just did, right? Or maybe like 5 seconds late because we're running 5 seconds every 5 seconds. So I'll go ahead and type something from this side, right? The VueJS chat app, right? Oh, what the heck happened? Oh, there it is. Say what? All right, there it is. So yeah, I feel like it's working already. We don't even have to touch anything. Let's see what else do we need to do. You guys can go ahead and start typing in the chat so that we, all right, hello, all right, type the hello. All right, our message has been sent, but you can see that this one has an auto scrolling feature, which means whenever there's a new message, it will auto scroll for me so that we don't have to scroll manually in here. But how do we achieve that? If you guys know there's a new JavaScript ES6 syntax called scroll into view. It's like very nice feature that JavaScript added. It's like a very new version. So you take a one element and you tell the scroll into view, meaning that scroll into this element so that a user can see, scroll into the user screen, or rather, right? So for example, if I want to scroll into this hello element right here, this text, right now it's hidden. Let's say it's hidden. But if I call this method, select this element first, and then scroll into view, it will scroll automatically to this element so that I can see. All right. As an example, let's see what happens here. So now I have a scroll into view. Yeah. There's the content. All right. I want to get all the conversations in here, the message component. All right. So what I'm going to do is constant messages will be document dot query selector all. Remember, I want to select all. Call a message. What's that message? What is the class name? It's a message component. Message component. So now this messages has a 22 element in here. The first one is your first message, obviously. All right. So what I will do is I want to scroll to the first message component. So messages, the first item is a 0, right? It's all the way top, right? So scroll into view, see what happens. Yeah, it automatically scrolls for me, right? So if I want to scroll to the 19 element, see, it scrolls for me automatically. But if you want to have an animation as well, here's the animation behavior. So something like this, behavior is smooth. Yeah, let's just copy this guy. something like this. And now I'm going to scroll back up to the first one. There we go. Very nice. Right? 22. There's no such thing as 22 because it's like a 21 because array starts from 0, the last one. There we go. All right. So we can use this function to create a, whenever the data property has been updated. You guys remember the lifecycle hook that I told you guys about? There's the updated, there's the mounted, and whatever. Now, when does the updated lifecycle hook runs? Whenever your data property has been updated. So in this case, our data property is just a message. So when our data property has been updated, meaning a message has been added to our message array, I'm calling this .scroll. I'm calling this method called this .scroll, right? Whenever my messages has been added or whatever, I'm calling this scroll. So to do that, it's not async, sorry. Scroll in here. All right. So our data property has been updated. So we get all the messages, document.get query selector all, the first one, right, is a messages component, message component. And after that, the messages will be a array, right? So now our messages is array. So we want to scroll to the last item because the new message is always at the last. So messages, how do I get a length of item inside an array? Messages dot length -1 dot scroll into view, and the object itself. Behavior smooth. Log is end, scroll to the end of the item. All right, and the inline is the nearest. I don't think you need this inline statement, so let's take it out. Whenever the data has been updated, we're scrolling to the last messages. That's it. So that's basically what it's doing. So now if I refresh, so it's waiting for a while because it's fetching all the messages. There we go. It's scrolled automatically for me. Now if I hit enter, scroll, see? But what if instead of typing in, instead of clicking on this button manually, what if I want to enter this whenever I click on enter key? How do I do that? Well, event pagination. I mean, like in JavaScript, you do something like whenever user clicks on enter key, you say that JavaScript.add event listener and then key up enter or whatever, right? So in VueJS, it's basically the same thing, but let's go to the same message. And then in here, empty text area, v on, key up, dot enter. All right, on v on is for events, on key up, enter, dot enter, remember, yeah? The first one is the first listener, all right? The second one is or you can say key down will present the key, right? The key up is just one press. So I'm going to call in this send message, v on key up dot enter on the text area itself, right? This element. Save. Now refresh. Now if I hit enter, it sent the message already. But there's a little lag between the item. You can see that just straight away. I don't know if you guys can see it from your screen, but I can, because like you can literally see that whenever the data comes through, because we are waiting for the server to finish. So we send a request to the server, hi, or blah, 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 right? The text, the message that we want to send. And then we have to wait for it. Then we reset the message to 0. Then we have to wait 5 seconds again so that our message includes in the latest, polling that we get from the server. So it's really not that efficient if you consider it. So what we can do is we can take advantage of emit and even listener inside our Java, inside Vue.js. So instead of sending this data right here, what if we make an optimistic response? The optimistic response is we are faking the data, all right? Faking the data. Then we send that data back to the parent, which is our chat. We just set the fake data to the chats, send the fake data to the chats. Then we display that to the user first, and then the server will do the fetch API will do the work in the background asynchronously. So we don't care about all the fetch API because user doesn't care, right? They don't care. So what I mean by that, the optimistic response is very useful in this fetch API and everything, because most of them use the optimistic response. Fake it till you make it. Like this is the syntax that they call it. So it's like something like you fake it first, the data. So if you look inside our message array, one object, the chat component, let's look at the first object. We have this v or whatever, and we have an ID, and we have created it, we have a text, we have the updated it, we have the username, right? So how many items entries in this object? 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, right? But I feel like this v0 comes from a database, so we don't need this colon v, because I feel like it's just redundant and it's not used anywhere, right? Except that we use text, username, updated, created it, and the ID. We might use an ID in the future, but yeah, let's only duplicate these 5 entries. Then we will send this data back to the parent. So in here, let fake data be an object. Now, the first one that we need to fake is a username. Do we need to fake a username? No, we don't, because our username is available inside our local storage. So we just get it in here. And here's a text. Now it's our message, which is from here, right? And when was this message created? Created at, which is this guy, created at, right? Oh no, there's no underscore. Created at will be your timestamp with time zone. So you can use the JavaScript function new date, current timestamp to ISO string will convert it to the string formula. So at the end, it looks something like this, right? And same goes for the updated at. Updated at like this. But what about for the ID? How do we generate a unique ID that is not, that is secure, so that is universally unique in our, or not universally unique, but rather, it's unique across our app. So, what kind of an ID is a unique? The date is also unique if you consider it, because date also has even a millisecond is included in the date or timestamp. Even a millisecond is included in the timestamp. So it's always unique. This syntax is new date, right? So we can reuse that guy. So now here's our fake data. This is our fake data. Now we are going to emit this $emit send message. We have just sent a message, and then we are going to give the fake data as a parameter, so that a message, a chat can get So chat's component can catch this event right here. Now this is done right here. Our message will be instance. So all we need to do is we go back to the chat and then we catch this event and we add it inside our array. But then this will perform the rest. So this will be done at last. So our data will be instance, if that makes sense. So go back to the chats, and then in here at the send message component, we are going to catch that event in here. All right, v on, because it comes from the send message component, isn't it? So like I told you, you only catch those events on the component itself inside the parent, right? V on send message. Whenever this event comes through, we call it add message function. And remember, those events payload will be automatically passed to the message itself, this function itself. So you don't need to pass in the parameters automatically in here as long as you catch those. So add message, all right, add message. And here's the message that it will be passed from the child to the parent. And now this the messages push will push to the end of the array, right? Message. This message right here. Let's call it an MSG so that it's easier to read. So this message will be pushed as at the end of this array right here. V on send message, add message. It comes from the send message event comes from a send message component, and it comes along with the fake data. I can show you as an example of what I'm talking. So now there's a, it's now fetching the data from the server. Okay, now we got the data. Now if I start sending the messages, go to the events tab, click on send message. See the send message, and here's the payload that I send. It's a fake data, by the way. Yeah, hi and blah blah blah. By the way, you can see that the data, the updated was in a very instance. So right here, instance response, hit enter. See, the instant response was updated, but then for some reason it reset its back right here. So to fix that, we need to clone this guy, because we need to reset. Let's say like whenever the data comes through, we need to reset this C hi to empty string. All right, empty string. Now what is an empty string? So something like this. All right, after we send the fake data, we are going to reset this message back to the 0 or empty string. But there's a problem. But then how do we send this message again? Because now we are sending an empty message to the actual server, so it wouldn't work. So we need to clone this guy before we, remember, it's just a memory pointer, right? So you don't need to, you need to take care of that. Everything points to the same memory pointer. So at the end, when you clear one, it's gonna clear everything that is pointing to the same memory address. So this message is set to the empty string now. Now then, text is equal to this message, right? And now I can just JSON stringify this message. And now after that, JSON pass this guy. Now what the hell am I doing in here? Because JSON stringify is like this message. When I say this message, take this message from the memory address and stringify it, meaning that allocate a new memory for this one. So it's like cloning, all right, just for this one. And when you stringify the syntax, it's gonna end a double quotes onto itself. So before we send this to the server, we need to pass it again to remove those double quotes. So now this will pass, and now it has its own memory address located inside our computer. I can prove this right here. first one, what it does is, I'm going to console.log first, yeah? So the log, this guy, all right? And then stringify this. And now when I say JSON.pass, JSON.stringify is the message, save that guy. Now refresh. 1 second, yeah, it's loading. All right. So the first one will stringify my message, right? Which will, let's say, like a just stringify. So it's like a converts a JavaScript value to a JavaScript object notation JSON or stringify. It's like it's gonna end a, you'll see what I'm talking about here. I don't do much. All right, you see that when I say stringify, it added a double quotes to the JavaScript right here because it's asking us to stringify. Now, when I say pass, it's gonna remove those stringify the double quotes. But now this guy will have a own memory address, so meaning that it won't interfere with this message anymore, right? So it's now point to the this right here, this text instead, memory address. So when I clear this message, it's not going to clear in here because it's now has its own memory address and pointer and everything in here. So you don't need to worry about this. It's like similar to how you would clone something like a JavaScript object or some value that you want to use. So now if I refresh, now my data response should be instance because we just cleared it in here. So it looks very like a real chat app in here. All right. Hello. Hello. Hi. Hi. Okay, now it's a hi because like we need to wait for 5 seconds. So if I can just set it to 1 second. 1 second, this should work fine. You will see why. All right. Hi. 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 Hello. Hello. Okay, but here's one problem, right? This is the line of code that I'm doing right here. It's very, I mean, like, it's not a best practice, I would say, this polling. Because you go to the network tab, look at the network request, 49, 51, 52. Because every 1 second we are sending requests to the server, isn't it? So if you are on your mobile data, like, yeah. I mean, like, so this is not a best solution. So the best solution is, this is the easiest way to poll the new data or to get a instance response from the server. But the correct way is using WebSocket. Now, what is a WebSocket? WebSocket, I don't want to touch it right now because like WebSocket is a bit hard, I would say. Not hard, but it's like a whole new library. Trust me, it's very simple though, all right? So WebSocket is what you use to get a live update from the server. Whenever there's an update on the server, WebSocket will do that for you, and then it will update it accordingly. Something like this. For example, this one is like constantly sending a request to the server, which is not good, but WebSocket won't do that. Whenever there's a new message, WebSocket won't send another request to the server. What WebSocket will do is WebSocket will emit a message from the server, and from the server, it's similar to how you would catch the event from the view child to the parent, from parent to the child, right? So you emit an event from the child, and then that child parent will catch that event. But with the WebSocket, it's similar to what we are doing right now. The server will emit a message whenever there's a new message to every one of the clients. So if there are 5 clients connected to my, to my server, then server will emit, a message to 5 of them saying, hey, there's a new message. All right, so what the client do is, when that event comes through, it's gonna catch on those events, and then it's gonna update the message accordingly. So it's just gonna, at the end, it's gonna just fetch a one message only, not like whole new message array. So just one message, and then it's gonna update it accordingly. So similar to the add message array right here. So it's just gonna push one message to our array. All right. So, but this way also works, but it's not the best way to the solution. When you have a WebSocket, something like a WebSocket, you take advantage of it. All right. So yeah. So here's our final version of the app. So I feel like we also need to add in the logout button. How do we log out? Inside the chat, let's add in the button called the logout, right? So in here, if I go to the button, here's a button. Where's the button? Code default. Yeah, this button, primary. And now I'm going to say logout. Now, what happens if I log out? We on click, whenever user clicks on this guy, we are calling the logout function, right? So this logout function would clear our local storage. That's it. And then refresh the whole page, right? So that the user is logged out. So logout, local storage dot clear will clear local storage and everything. And window is points to your whatever your JavaScript, sorry, your browser dot location dot reload will reload the page automatically. All right. So now we are telling the local storage to clear, and now we are telling the browser to refresh itself. So window points to your browser, your window, current window, and location points to the whatever your current tab is, and then reload will reload obviously. All right, so, and then in here, what we will want to do is, so here's the logout, yeah, the logout button, but I want this on the right hand side. So what I'm going to say is, flex this guy to be take off, grow this item by 1. So what I'm going to say is style flex grow to be 1. Now this should take up the available width, and this should be on the right, which is good, right? So now whenever user clicks on this guy, our application would log out. There we go, it logs us out. Now if I check the application, the local storage, there's nothing here, isn't it? So, but if I start login, 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, login, we have just logged in, but our application didn't refresh or rather reload, right? So whenever there's a user login or sign up inside the login of view, right? We are just going to copy this line of code, login, authenticate, blah, blah, blah. We set the storage first, login, reload the page. Now, let's log in first. Real 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, hash. It logs me in. Now I can log out as well, or I can sign up, right? I can sign up. It's gonna log me in as well. I can log out. There we go. This is our final version of the authentication app. All right. Any questions on how we just did it? Or, I'm just gonna push this code up, obviously, but any questions, just feel free to ask, yeah? Okay, so yeah, let's check whether there are any bugs or not, all right? So if I go to the real and then I just gonna log in, so click on login, and then in here, what I'm gonna do is like, just wait for the response to finish, right? So now my application loads fine, okay, but we want to display the date and time as well, but we don't have enough time to do yet. So why don't you guys do it, right? So I just did all of it. So yeah, and then in here, blah, 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 I send a message, it's okay, it's fine, here and there. Also do add in the emoji picker as well, if you can, you know, since, I mean, like this code is like very basic. It's not much, like all you have to do is just embrace the code. And then in here, just add in the emoji picker as well, so that you can pick the emoji and you can also select the emoji and everything and so on. So yeah, log out, log in, everything is fine. Okay. Yep. So any questions on this project that we just did? If not, then we'll discuss about the next week and what are the, you know, things that we need to do. All right, so seems like no questions. So yeah, for the next few weeks, what we'll be doing is like, you know, we just touched obviously the every part of VueJS. So we just went through props, we just went through components, and we also uses the, meanwhile, we also uses the Vue CLI. We're still using the Vue CLI, obviously. So we just learn about, you know, how Vue works and how Vue can speed up our development as well. But we haven't touched the backend part yet, right? So in the next few weeks, we're gonna learn about how to write like the API that I showed you in here. So for example, the API / login, you know, we can log the user in, we can create the user, we can fetch all the messages. So those are called API, application programming interfaces. Okay, so those API are the key to your application. If there's a web application, you know, they have their own API. Of course, there's no such thing as application without the API. So Facebook, for example, Facebook has its own API, all right, and Twitter has its own API. Grab has its own API. So, for example, if you want to communicate with the remote, right, you would do the, you know, you would get the remote and then you would change the TV or, you know, the channel on the TV with your hand, obviously. But with the programming or with the, you know, API, a computer will do it for you. So it's similar to that lah. So, but trust me, backend is probably the most simple way of, you know, the most simple way part of the web development, because I feel like backend is like very underrated lah. Backend is like not much. It's very easy to do as well. But the front end is like the hardest part in the development world, because front end is like constantly improving. So you have to learn every day, you know, like new stuff every day. Okay. All right, guys. If not any questions, then I think we can just wrap this off in here. I'll upload the recording and everything and code and everything, snippets and everything to the, you know, GitHub. Then I'll send the link to in the chat. So yeah.
Okay.
All right.
All right. Cheers, guys. If any questions, just feel free to ask, man.
All right.
You can
Thank you,
also
guys.
DM me and then we're done. All right.
Thanks, guys. Thank you so
Thanks.
much.
Cheers.
Thank you,
Bye-bye.
guys.
Bye-bye.